mirror on the wall, where am I? I'm young and tall. I'm not like that old bird at all. There's some mistake. No, that old bird, I say again, is much too old and much too plain, with glasses on a chain, for goodness sake. Mirror, mirror, softly lit, where is my husband, strong and fit, raconteur and wit? There's some mistake. I know my man, and he's not it, that bald and boring, stooped old git. He looks about to quit. Give him a shake. And where are my children, young and free, so beautiful for all to see? They are not here with me. There's some mistake. They're scattered now, gone to achieve, with partners I could take or leave. In silent rooms I grieve for old time's sake. The old grim reaper's on his way to cut his corn, to make his hay, the closing of the day, and no mistake. He runs his thumb along the blade and steps towards me from the shade. I think I've overstayed. And start to quake. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I don't like what I see at all. You're heading for a fall, you need a break. So stand well back and mind the crash. Here's the brick and there's the smash. See? Younger in a flash. Piece of cake. Hello. And a very, very warm welcome. We live in a beautiful old Cotswold stone house, and I look at it and I marvel really that I do live there, because I started out from a very modest background. There was 8 of us living in a council house in Stafford-in-the-Vale, so I feel very fortunate, to live in that beautiful Cotswold stone house. And recently, however, we have had a bit of a problem with it, because when we first moved into our house 20 years ago now, you walk in through the front door and it's a lovely flagstone floor, and on the right hand side there's a big fireplace. And when we moved in, our fireplace was blocked up with a sheet of hardboard, to which had been affixed a 2-bar electric fire in a shade of aqua. And the initial impact was fairly depressing. And we had a really nice builder. He was a very old gentleman in a cap. And I asked him, I said, what I'd really like in that fireplace is a wood-burning stove. That's what I'd really like. Is that possible, do you think? What would I have to do to have one? And he said, line the chimney. I said, pardon? He said, line the chimney, missus. He said, because if you don't line the chimney, what you're going to get running all down the inside is rivers a treacle. And it sounded like a voice from the crypt, He said, rivers a treacle, missus. And all the hairs stood up on my arms. And so I said, oh, well, we'll line the chimney then, of course. That's what we'll do. And so in due course, a silver spiral was wrestled in through the front door and thrust up the flue. And the wood-burning stove was affixed to the other end. And for years, it was fine. The only sad thing about it was, about a fortnight after we installed ours, they invented one that kept its own glass clean. They invented one that fanned hot air down over its own glass and sort of burnt away the deposits. Whereas ours, you admire the flickering flames for about 7 minutes, and then these enormous crusty deposits of soot build up, which have to be scraped off by a blackened operative, usually myself. But anyway, be that as it may, we had a wood-burning stove installed, and it's been a real friend, for nearly 2 decades. A lovely, cosy presence. Lovely. However, unfortunately, recently, this horrible smell has crept through the home. And at first I didn't know where it could be coming from. There was this horrible, vile, hellish, scorched, sooty sort of smell. And I searched all over the place, and in the end I had the nous to look down the back of the wood-burning stove, and what do you think I saw? A river of treacle. That's absolutely right. This disgusting, great, glossy coil of thick, viscous stuff had appeared, come out of the back of the wood-burning stove and was all over the flagstones, and it stank. It was absolutely repulsive. Anyway, by that time, of course, the gentleman who had put it in had gone aloft, and so So I had to speak to somebody else, and we had another nice chap who does a chimney, and I said to him, why would it have happened after all this time? What do you think's caused it? And I'm not making this up. He said, it's global warming. And I had a job to keep a straight face. I said, what do you mean, like, global warming? He said, it's your rain. He said, it's your rain. Before global warming, your rain come vertical. But now, after global warming, your rain is coming horizontal. He said, it's gone under your baffle, down into your soot trap. It's rusted your soot trap through, and this is the upshot. So I said, oh, well, can anything be done about it to rectify it? Yes, he said. He put a ladder up the side of the house, he shinned up it, he put a thing over the top of our chimney that looked like a casserole, and he charged me 150 quid. So it is remarkable how global warming is affecting us all. The poor old planet's on its knees. I fear I've overfished the seas. It's all my fault, and serve me right for eating fish on Friday night. My homely fire of glowing coals has helped to melt the icy poles. I dread to see, when next I look, an iceberg floating up the brook. Too late to change, now writ in blood, comes storm and tempest, fire and flood. May God protect my three-piece suite, last seen floating down the street. Now I'll try to act a bit more green and shift me bonfire from the scene, nor laugh to see my neighbours choke as their garden fills with smoke. I will not fling upon the fires mattresses and old car tires. To finer feelings I shall yield. I'll tip 'em in the farmer's field. Too much water, it was clear. Our family was wasting here. To rectify it, I was quick, and in the cistern put a brick. Our energy comes from the sun, with solar panels by the ton. So heavy did the blighters grow, our house is now a bungalow. Gas guzzling cars, they make me boil. We're powered by sunflower oil, and thus our car on normal trips emits the smell of fish and chips. My husband and I, we've got two sons, and last July our youngest son was 21, and we decided to have a bit of a do, and so we invited lots of friends and relations to our house, And then we all went to a nice hotel for a posh lunch. That's what we did. And so I did my best to make our garden look very nice and attractive and presentable for the occasion. And I did. I made it look extremely nice. But as it happened, at the same time as our son had his 21st, we had to have the builders in. You know, we'd been waiting for them to come for a long time, and finally they could come, and so we were glad, and they were there at the same time. And they brought with them a portaloo, which I wasn't very chuffed about, really, because when I had imagined a centrepiece for our garden... that wasn't it. Anyway, this portaloo turned up and it was stuck in the garden, and I hated it, actually. I absolutely detested the thing because the door didn't shut properly and it was always hanging open, and you could see this squalid old toilet roll hanging on a piece of string, and you could see its grey moulded innards, and one day they had interleaved toilet paper and it blew all over the garden. It was all this toilet paper all over the shrubs, all pasted up against the wall, and I did hate the thing. However, after a while I started to see the funny side of it, and so I wrote this, which is called The Battle of Portaloo. And it's got sort of a hip-hop rhythm because I've always been at the cutting edge. So if you want to, you can dance to it. Shut that portaloo door up, boys, shut that portaloo do. Well, I like the look of a great many things, but I ain't so keen about you. No, I want to see my garden, boys, the beautiful flowers I've grown. So shut that portaloo door up now, I don't want to see that throne. I don't like that portaloo, boys, it's not my favourite sight. It's leaning over sideways, painted horrible blue and white. It's bawdy and it's gaudy, and the sight of it makes me cringe. Standing in the rubble with the door coming off of its hinge. So, close that chemical cabinet, boys, you hide that tissue paper roll. I don't want to be looking at them things when I go for a stroll. And don't puff any more fags in there, boys. Don't puff those cigars. She's smoking like a rocket ship on her way to Mars. Now, the carpenter's gone, and the search is on, and the language makes me wince. Well, he disappeared an hour ago, and they have not seen him since. They're searching and they're cursing, but he didn't go that far. He's hid from view in the portaloo with a fag in the Daily Star. Now, I'm not averse to toilets, boys. I use one every day. But I don't want to goggle at yours. I suppose I'm funny that way. I'm tired of the click-click polythene roof expanding in the sun. And tired of the radio, click-clack, chit-chat, tune to Radio 1. So, load that portaloo up now, boys, you lever it up on the van. Well, I used to be a tolerant gal, but that's all gone down the pan. I like a tasteful toilet, boys. I like a loo that knows its place, but I don't like that portaloo. No, it's all too in your face. So a fond adieu to the portaloo, and I hope that you're gone for good. There's only a whiff of disinfectant showing us where you stood. And so, my friends, these cigarette ends, they mark the noble sight where the underpaid of the building trade went for a brief respite. Thank you very much. We've always kept chickens, you know. Always, ever since I was tiny in Stafford-in-the-Vale. My mother used to get them in a grey box with owls along the side, and they used to come on the train. And she used to come out and call us. We'd all be playing on the village green, and she'd come out and say, "Oi!" There's a lot of us, you see. She couldn't distinguish between... And she'd say, "Oi, come on in here, I've got something to show you." And we'd all come rushing indoors, and there on the kitchen table would be this square grey box with holes along the side. And my mum used to say, "Ark, Ark." And you put your ear down by this box, and you could hear all the little chicks going cheep, 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 and there was great excitement. And my mother would lift the lid off the box, and there'd be this seething mass of dear little dinky yellow chicks. And they had this smell, and it wasn't an offensive smell at all. It was just a very distinctive smell of little chicks. And we used to jump up and down and rejoice. Yeah, there wasn't much going on in Stamford, so you had to sort of make the best of what there was. Anyway, and from those happy days, I've always kept poultry. I like them. I like to know where my eggs come from. Well, I know where they come from, but, I like to know that they're from animals, creatures which have been properly looked after. So anyway, you'll understand that when I walked up to my chickens recently and I saw feathers everywhere and feathers all pasted up against the wire netting, you will understand that I felt very, very dejected because I thought straight away that we had had a visit from the fox, that's right. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to open the door, it's going to be blood and guts in there, and I'm going to have to clear it up because nobody in our family likes chickens as much as I do. So I went up with a heavy heart, and I don't like anything like that, and I opened the door, and I thought the fox would have got in. Anyway, I only had 6 chickens at that time, and they all came out. I counted them all out. And they all started scratching about in the yard like chickens do, and I couldn't see anything wrong with any of them. And I was mystified. I went away, and I had no clue why there were all these feathers everywhere. So anyway, it must have been a week, I suppose, at least, before I was up there again with time to stand about. And I was looking at the chickens, and one of them turned side on to me like that, and where it should have had a wing, it had this ghastly black socket with all bones sticking out like sticks. This is an unusual evening's entertainment, really. And I realised what must have happened, because these chickens had made themselves a little dust bath beside the wire, and they must have got in there and kicked all the dust over themselves like they do and fluffed up their feathers, and the fox must have actually caught her, and what he did was pull her wing off, and that's what had happened. And so it didn't look that different, because the underside was still brown, so unless you were really studying it, you couldn't see what had happened. Anyway, I was horrified because it had been left neglected for a week at least. So I rang my sister, who keeps a lot of poultry, and I said, well, what would you do, Jean? She said, well, if it was me, I wouldn't hesitate. I'd take it straight to the vet. So I thought, well, I will. I'll try and make up to the poor thing for the way it suffered. And I had nothing to put it in, so I put it in a picnic hamper. And I went to the vet in Cirencester, and I sat there with a deliberately ferocious expression on my face because I didn't want anybody to say, and what have you got in your basket? Because they might have thought I was a pillock. Anyway, in due course, I was invited into the vet's room. I put the box on his white table, and I said, it's a chicken. And you know that deliberately blank expression that people assume when they think they might be dealing with somebody unbalanced? He said, I see. Anyway, I lifted her out and I showed him to her, and he was very nice. He said, oh, God, whatever's happened to her? And I explained. And he said, well, what you have to do, he said, is leave her with me. He said, I'll have to clean up what's left. You can see it's all gone black. And he said, I'll clean it up as best I can, stitch her up. He said, but I will have to give her a whiff of happy gas. And birds don't stand up to gas very well as a rule, so you mustn't be too optimistic, but I would do my best if you'd like to ring about 2 o'clock. So off I went, and I rang about 2 o'clock. And the lady, the receptionist, said, yes, she said, your chicken's come round. She said, I'm pleased to tell you she's come round. She's able to sit up and take a little wheat. No, she didn't say that really, I made it up. But she said, you can come and pick her up. So I went down and I got my chicken and I took her home in the picnic basket, and the vet had said, be careful that the others don't peck her. They might see all this elaborate embroidery and peck at her. So I put her down with some trepidation, and all 6 of them pottered off They all pottered off, and I was absolutely delighted because it was a horrible story, but it had a sort of happy ending, didn't it? Because the fox got some of her, but he didn't get it. He didn't get it all. But the only thing I don't want you to ask me is how much money I had to pay the vet, because I'm far too embarrassed to tell you, but he is driving a new Mercedes. Oh, I am a battery hen. On my back, there's not a germ. I've never scratched a farmyard, and I've never pecked a worm. I've never had the sunshine to warm me feathers through. Eggs I lay every day for the likes of you. Now, when you has 'em scrambled and piled up on your plate, it's me what you should thank for that. I never lays 'em late. I always lays 'em regular. I always lays 'em right. I never lays 'em brown. I always lays 'em white. But it's no life for a battery hen. In my box I'm sat. There's a funnel stuck out from the side. Me pellet comes down that. I gets a squirt of water every half a day, watching with me beady eye, me eggs roll away. I lays 'em in a funnel, strategically placed, so that I can't kick 'em and let 'em go to waste. They rolls off down the tubing and up the gangway quick, and sometimes I gets to thinking, that could have been a chick. And I might have been a farmyard hen scratching in the sun. There might have been a crowd of chicks after me to run. There might have been a cockerel fine to pay us his respects, instead of sitting here till someone comes and wrings their necks. I see the time and motion clock is saying nearly noon. I expect me squirt of water will come flying at me soon. And then me spray of pellets will nearly break me leg, and I'll bite the wire netting and lay one more bloody egg.